The Undefeated Ronin, Miyamoto Musashi. He survived over 60 duels, then laid down steel for silence.
In the autumn of 1643, a 59-year-old warrior, sensing the approach of his own death, climbed the rugged, forested slopes of Mount Iwato on the Japanese island of Kyushu. Leaving behind the comforts of a feudal lord's castle, he retreated into the cold, damp stone of the Rei-Gando, the spirit rock cave. For weeks he sat in isolation, taking up a brush not to paint the exquisite landscapes he was known for, but to distill a lifetime of violence, survival, and mastery into a single manuscript. By the time he finished the Book of Five Rings, Go Rin no Sho, he had survived an unprecedented 61 duels to the death, remaining completely undefeated. He was considered a demon by his enemies, an eccentric by his peers, and an unparalleled genius by his followers. Miyamoto Musashi was a man who had forged his philosophy in the bloodiest era of Japanese history, ultimately transforming himself from a ruthless killer into a profound philosopher whose strategic mind would influence the world centuries after his passing. Miyamoto Musashi was born as Shinmen Takezo in or around the year 1584, though the exact date remains debated among historians. Born in either Harima Province or Mimasaka Province in Japan, he was a Japanese swordsman, philosopher, artist, strategist, and a ronin, a masterless samurai. He is universally recognized as one of the greatest martial artists in history and the founder of the Niten Ichi-Ryu, Two Heavens as One school of swordsmanship, a unique technique that utilized both the katana, long sword, and the wakizashi, short sword, simultaneously. Beyond his martial prowess, Musashi's profound influence stems from his authorship of the Book of Five Rings, a seminal text on strategy, tactics, and philosophy. Today, he is studied not just by martial artists, but by global business leaders, military tacticians, and philosophers seeking insight into discipline, strategy, and the absolute mastery of the self. Musashi was born into the chaos of the late Sengoku period, the age of warring states, an era defined by constant military conflict, shifting alliances, and extreme social instability. His father, Shinmen Munisai, was an accomplished martial artist and an expert in the jutte, a baton-like weapon used to trap swords. The young Musashi's childhood was fraught with difficulty. According to most historical accounts, his mother died when he was young, and his relationship with his father was highly abusive and violently combative. Due to this severe estrangement, Musashi was largely raised by his uncle, a Buddhist priest named Dorinbo. Living in a brutal, unforgiving society, Musashi matured rapidly. His early ambitions were singularly focused on physical dominance and martial supremacy. At the remarkably young age of 13, he fought his first duel against a traveling samurai named Arima Kie. According to the Hyoho Senshi Denki, an early biographical record, the young Musashi tackled the older, armed warrior to the ground and beat him to death with a wooden staff. This brutal victory set the trajectory for the rest of his youth. Uncouth, aggressively competitive, and largely uneducated in the classical sense at this early stage, Musashi embraced the harsh path of the Shugiyosha, a wandering warrior seeking enlightenment and fame through mortal combat. The single greatest historical event to shape Musashi's early life was the monumental Battle of Sekigahara in the year 1600. This massive clash involved over 160,000 warriors and decisively ended the Sengoku period, establishing the absolute dominance of Tokugawa Ieyasu and birthing the Tokugawa shogunate. Tradition holds that a 16-year-old Musashi fought in this battle on the side of the Western Army, the losing faction, under the banner of the Ukita clan. Surviving the catastrophic defeat and the subsequent hunting of surviving enemy troops forced Musashi to become a fugitive, hardening his survival instincts. However, modern historians like Kenji Tokitsu note that his exact presence at Sekigahara is highly debated, with some evidence suggesting he may have been serving the Kuroda clan in Kyushu instead. Regardless of his exact geographical location, the political aftermath of the year 1600 fundamentally altered Musashi's world. The Tokugawa regime ushered in an era of enforced peace, the Pax Tokugawa. Samurai, once defined solely by battlefield prowess, were suddenly expected to become educated bureaucrats and administrators. Musashi wholly rejected this transition. While others assimilated into the new, peaceful social hierarchy, Musashi committed himself to the pure, archaic essence of the warrior. He deliberately kept himself isolated from the comforts of societal rank, dedicating every waking moment to analyzing the physics of combat, the psychology of his opponents, and the nature of life and death. Musashi's transition from a nameless, wandering ronin to a figure of national notoriety occurred in 1604, when he traveled to the imperial capital of Kyoto. He was 20 or 21 years old. His target was the prestigious Yoshioka school, the most prominent and historically respected fencing academy in the capital, which had previously served as instructors to the Ashikaga shoguns. Musashi issued a direct challenge to the head of the school, Yoshioka Seijuro. In a move that would become his trademark, Musashi arrived completely unarmed and significantly late, deeply insulting Seijuro and psychologically unbalancing him. When the duel began, Musashi struck Seijuro a single crippling blow with a wooden sword, shattering his arm and ending his career. Infuriated, Seijuro's brother, Denshichiro, challenged Musashi to a second duel. Musashi again arrived late, disarmed his opponent, and killed him. Facing public humiliation, the surviving Yoshioka retainers orchestrated an ambush. They challenged Musashi to a third duel at the Ichijoji pine tree, bringing dozens of armed men, archers, and musketeers, nominally led by the 12-year-old Yoshioka Matoshichiro. Anticipating the trap, Musashi fundamentally altered his strategy. Instead of arriving late, he arrived hours early, hiding in the brush. When the Yoshioka men gathered, Musashi burst from the shadows, assassinated the young leader to break their morale, and fought his way through dozens of armed men using 2 swords, an event that catalyzed the development of his Niten Icheu style. He escaped the city, leaving the legendary Yoshioka school utterly destroyed. While the Kyoto duels made him notorious, his breakthrough moment, the event that secured his legendary status in Japanese history, occurred on April 13, 1612. At the age of 28 or 29, Musashi challenged Sasaki Kojirō, widely considered the most brilliant and lethal swordsman of the era. Known as the demon of the western provinces, Kojirō wielded a massive, exceptionally long nodachi, greatsword, nicknamed the drying pole, and was famous for a deadly technique called the swallow cut. The duel was arranged on the remote island of Funajima, later renamed Ganryūjima in Kojiro's honor, under the supervision of the Hosokawa clan. Employing masterful psychological warfare, Musashi arrived by boat nearly 3 hours late. As he was being rowed to the island, he calmly carved a wooden sword, bokken, from a spare boat oar, intentionally cutting it to be a few inches longer than Kojiro's massive steel blade. When Musashi finally arrived, Kojirō was enraged. Kojirō drew his sword and angrily threw his scabbard into the ocean. Musashi reportedly smiled and declared, "Kojirō, you have lost. What victor throws away his scabbard?" As Kojirō struck down with his swallow cut, slicing through the knot of Musashi's headband, Musashi struck simultaneously with his heavy wooden oar, crushing Kojiro's skull. The swift, decisive victory over Japan's most feared swordsman cemented Musashi's reputation as an invincible martial genius. After this 61st duel, he voluntarily stopped fighting lethal duels to the death. Following the Ganryūjima duel, Musashi's life shifted from seeking individual combat to refining his philosophy and participating in major historical conflicts. In 1614 and 1615, he participated in the winter and summer campaigns of Osaka Castle. Unlike the Battle of Sekigahara, he is widely believed to have fought on the side of the Tokugawa shogunate as a guest of the Ogasawara clan. In 1634, he settled down in Kokura with his adopted son, Iori, serving under the Ogasawara clan. Between 1637 and 1638, Musashi participated in the suppression of the Shimabara Rebellion, a massive uprising of Japanese Christians. During this conflict, the aging Musashi was injured when a thrown rock struck his shin, a humbling reminder of his mortality on the chaotic battlefield. In 1640, at the age of 56, he finally accepted an official position, becoming an esteemed guest retainer of Hosokawa Tadatoshi, the powerful daimyo of Kumamoto. Here, he was treated with immense respect, given a massive stipend of 300 koku of rice, and provided an estate. In 1643, feeling his health failing, he retreated to the Rei-Gando cave. In May 1645, just weeks before his death on June 13, 1645, he completed the Book of Five Rings and a secondary 21-precept manuscript known as the Dokudo, the Path of Aloneness.
Musashi is most universally famous for writing the Book of Five Rings, Go-Rin no Sho, divided into 5 scrolls: Earth, Water, Fire, Wind, and Void. The book is a masterclass in strategy. The Earth Scroll outlines the foundation of his Niten Ichiryu school. The Water Scroll describes physical techniques, flexibility, and the purity of mind. Fire analyzes the heat and psychology of battle. Wind critiques the failings of rival schools, and the Void, or emptiness, explores the ultimate state of martial arts, where action becomes instinctual and deeply spiritual. His fame also stems from his invention of the two-sword fighting style. Prior to Musashi, samurai primarily wielded the katana with 2 hands. Musashi argued that restricting one hand was inefficient. By mastering the use of both swords simultaneously, a warrior could handle multiple attackers and strike from unpredictable angles. In the late 20th century, Musashi's fame exploded globally. During the 1980s, Wall Street executives, Western entrepreneurs, and global corporations began studying the Book of Five Rings, not for swordplay, but for competitive business strategy. His emphasis on pragmatism, timing, and destroying an opponent's rhythm translated seamlessly into modern corporate warfare. As a human being, Musashi was defined by absolute pragmatism and extreme discipline. He despised anything superfluous. This was evident in his personal habits. He rarely bathed, refused to comb his hair, and never married, believing that any attachment or distraction would create a vulnerability that an enemy could exploit. His 21-rule manuscript, the Dokudo, perfectly encapsulates his mindset. Rules such as accept everything just the way it is, do not seek pleasure for its own sake, and never let yourself be saddened by a separation, highlight a deeply stoic, ascetic philosophy. Yet, Musashi was not merely a brute. He believed that to master the sword, one must master all things. Know the way broadly, he wrote. He applied his strategic mind to high art, becoming an exceptionally skilled painter, sculptor, and calligrapher. His surviving sumie, ink-wash paintings, particularly Koboku Meikakuzu, Shrike on a Dead Branch, and Hote Watching a Cockfight, are celebrated as masterpieces of Japanese art, currently designated as important cultural properties in Japan. His motivation was a relentless, almost terrifying pursuit of perfection and absolute truth in all human endeavors. Despite his legendary status, Musashi was heavily criticized during his lifetime and by subsequent historians. Traditional samurai viewed his tactics as deeply dishonorable. His habit of arriving deliberately late to duels was seen by many orthodox martial artists as a cowardly trick, rather than a brilliant psychological tactic. The Yoshioka clan supporters labeled him a murderer rather than a duelist because he relied on ambushes and deception at Ichijoji. Musashi also experienced significant personal and professional failures. For the vast majority of his life, his ultimate goal was to secure a high-ranking position as a military advisor to a powerful daimyo. However, his unkempt appearance, his terrifying reputation, and his uncompromising nature made lords hesitant to hire him. He was frequently passed over for employment, forcing him to wander in poverty for decades before finally finding a patron in the Hosokawa clan at the very end of his life. Furthermore, modern historians sometimes question the absolute veracity of his 61 undefeated duels, noting that the only source for this exact number is Musashi himself in the Book of Five Rings, and losing a duel in that era generally meant death, making his claim a survivor's narrative. Musashi's impact spans multiple centuries and disciplines. In the short term, he established a lineage of swordsmanship, Niten Ichiryu, that continues to be practiced in Japan today. In martial arts, he shifted the paradigm from relying on rigid, localized traditions to emphasizing fluid, practical adaptability. Long-term, his influence is staggeringly broad. He defined the cultural archetype of the wandering, solitary hero, a trope that deeply influenced Japanese literature and cinema, and eventually Western cowboy and action films. Beyond culture, his philosophies on timing, initiative, and resource management have profoundly impacted modern economics and business management. His insistence that the true science of martial arts means practicing them in such a way that they will be useful at any time established a framework of functional pragmatism that resonates in modern psychology, sports, and leadership training globally. Miyamoto Musashi is remembered today as a cultural titan. His reputation evolved from a bloodthirsty warrior in his youth to an eccentric master in his middle age, and finally to a transcendent sage in his death. His life was heavily romanticized in the 1935 epic historical novel Musashi by Eiji Yoshikawa, which sold over 120 million copies and shaped the modern public perception of him. The character has been portrayed in dozens of films, most notably by actor Toshiro Mifune, and is the subject of Takehiko Inoue's critically acclaimed manga series, Vagabond. Monuments to Musashi exist across Japan, including statues in Mimasaka and memorials at the Ganryūjima duel site. However, his most enduring legacy is not a physical building or a piece of pop culture, but the text of the Book of Five Rings. It remains continuously in print worldwide, translated into dozens of languages, serving as a timeless manual for confronting conflict and navigating chaos. The life of Miyamoto Musashi reveals a profound truth about human transformation, that the deepest wisdom often requires surviving the greatest brutality. He began his life as a weapon, a feral youth determined to assert his existence through the destruction of others. Yet, instead of being consumed by the violence of his era, Musashi transcended it. He relentlessly questioned his own methods, refined his mind alongside his body, and ultimately realized that the highest purpose of the sword was not to take life, but to understand it. Musashi's enduring power does not come from the fact that he defeated 61 men, but from the fact that he ultimately conquered himself, proving that absolute discipline and unrelenting self-reflection can elevate a human being from a state of survival into the realm of immortality.